All right, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Tell me, what you're doing, where you're at, what you'd like to be doing, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Well, number one, hi, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm very appreciative of your time and being here. I would very much like to know your Venmo at the end of this, to at minimal treat you to a coffee or something.
Thank you.
Because I was absolutely just scrolling out TikTok at like 1 in the morning on Saturday. I think very shortly after you actually posted the video about this, and I felt like it was very much in alignment with where I'm at right now, just like needing some extra help. I am a full-time graphic designer. I'm based in Chicago, and I work at a healthcare tech company. It's kind of like in the benefits realm of life. I've been there for about a year and a half, but I've been working as a graphic designer for about the past like 5, 6 years, full-time, and then, a plethora of freelance experience, of course, probably even prior to full-time.
And tell me a little bit about the company you're working. You say it's in like the healthcare benefits. Like, are you working on a
Yeah, it's
team? Like, what's that?
Yeah, you got it. It's a pretty small team. When I first joined the company, they went through a little bit of a reorg about 2 months ago. But when I first joined, I joined on to their product team, as like they like to think of themselves as a startup company, even though they've been around for like 15 years or
Sure.
so. Because the first
Everyone does.
exactly the first 10 years they were like exclusively print based. So everything they were creating was print oriented. But then about 5 years ago, they created like a desktop and mobile app for the platform itself. And I was kind of their rehire of kind of the start of a new, of hopefully what would be a larger creative team. That didn't quite come to fruition. So it's just me, another graphic designer, and we are on the product team, which was exciting because we were working with a couple other UX designers, which I had not like worked alongside before, which I felt like would be a good kind of professional development opportunity to see a little bit more of their world, to better my own. Now we're kind of a little bit siloed out, speaking of, on a separate team. But I do a lot of like email communications for them, a little bit of print still, and like some digital slides and socials and things like that. So nothing too crazy. On the side, I will say I do work for a storefront theater here in Chicago, that's helping bringing arts and theater to the south side of Chicago. So that's kind of my passion project, and where I get to do a little bit more fun things, and the work that's a little bit more aligned with my personal values. But yeah.
Awesome. And what are you looking to kind of like, I guess, are you looking to move on from this company? Are you looking to find new jobs, freelance? Like, what's your goal here?
Yeah, I am in throes of fully applying everywhere and anywhere, maybe a little bit of rage applying, as TikTok would call it. Ideally, I thought I would have, they really dangled a promotion in front of me. I think I've been a
Ew.
senior graphic designer for quite a bit, but and they made alluding to that being the case, but then time and time again have kind of showed that they don't really have interest in investing in design, let alone the
Sure.
people of it. So I am definitely indeed looking to ideally, I really like working as in-house creative for a company. I find I often like have a lot like farther of an impact there. But I think at most, like when I think about like what a next opportunity would be, I really am craving like being a part of a large creative team again. Like I was at my last job, I was like on a team of like 7 designers. And even if we were all working on like different things, we'd obviously, collaborate in that regard. So that's definitely a key element in what I'm kind of looking for in my next jump for sure.
Cool. Would you want to go like in-house or do you want to go to like an agency?
I'm really open to both. I find that agency life often is the classic tale of needing agency experience to be a part of an agency. So I feel like unless I know a special someone on the inside, it might be in-house creative for me, as well as I really enjoy some work-life balance. So I'm not trying to work at 10 million hours a week. Uh,
Yeah.
unless I choose to, but that's my own decision, at that point.
Of course.
So I feel like a lot like I'm interviewing at the company right now, and it like is kind of like a boutique agency of sorts. So it's like got that external client feel, but like not like a behemoth of a company where like they're begging you to work 12-hour days and stuff like that. So
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely always like the kind of like pros and cons of like agency, more variety. Yeah, you'll be working with a ton of different people at all times.
mhm.
In-house, less variety. Depending on the size of the company, you'll be working with a team kind of that like relates to that. But okay. What how are you, so you're interviewing for this one agency. How are
Mhm.
you like going about, like, are you feeling good about that interview? And then like how are you going about sending out your job, your portfolio? Like what's that process like? Are you just applying to LinkedIn stuff? What are you doing?
Yeah, I've applied to 1.5 million jobs. I probably apply to about 30 roles a week, I'd say. And I've been doing that for probably about a month, a little over a month. And I mean, obviously the industry right now is not the hottest in the world, which is like all the layoffs and everything. So I feel like it's quite competitive, as well as just obviously the, new world of remote work and being able to like diversify your team to be able to be all over the world or the US. And so I have not had like a super great amount of like responses from my applications, from just kind of like cold applying. I do a ton of like trying to research. If I find a company in a role I like, trying to look up the folks on LinkedIn and trying to like connect with them directly, and sending personal letters and customizing cover letters using AI and all that good stuff. And I mean, the two places I've been interviewing with like have absolutely, not as a testament to downplaying myself, but have absolutely been because I've like known people that have worked at that company, and at least just like puts me at the top of the pile, because I do very well once I'm like in an interview process. And like the one like small agency, like I feel relatively confident an offer letter is going to come my way within the next week or so. But I just like don't want to feel like I have to pick it because it's the only option. I want to pick it because I want to pick it. So,
Sure. I mean, there's nothing wrong with knowing people and being able to
oh,
kind of use that to your
absolutely.
advantage. I
Yeah,
think that's like,
absolutely.
I mean, it's all about who you know,
Yep.
and like that's the way it goes. And
Hmm.
not unfortunately. I mean, it's just like do the work,
Hmm.
make connections. So like all props to you. But I hear you when you say like I don't want to feel like this is the only thing I have, so I'm
Yeah.
going to take it. Which again, like I think I remember one time someone said to me, like a guy I used to work with said to me, like two birds in the hand is better than one in the bush or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's always good to have options. Um, let's look at your portfolio, because I feel like you're doing everything that like I would basically say, like make connections, reach out to people on LinkedIn, all that stuff. So let's look at your portfolio and let's think about, and also like when you're applying to these, what are you sending? Are you sending just a link to your work?
Yeah. I mean, when they in the application and they ask for my portfolio, yeah, I drop in my website domain.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is the three projects that you kind of have going. And this is like all your other stuff that you would say you have dealt with.
Yeah, I tried
Um,
a different approach of like the last time I was job searching, I made it be very like project focused, and trying to elaborate out from there. And it felt, upon as I like kind of continued on, it felt a little disjointed. So my approach this time was more like client oriented and like grouping things by that, as I feel like just seeing things within one kind of look and feel often like works easier.
Fair, yeah.
So that was
What are you applying for? Are you applying for designer? Are you applying for any other position or just designer?
Primarily graphic design. I'll throw my name into like a junior art director role or an art director position, as I feel relatively confident about that. It's just whether or not they do. So,
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I was gonna say you have this like experience working with in product or like a product
mhm.
team, like digital, like, and we're referring to like UI UX, right?
Yeah,
Um, and you are a graphic designer, and obviously the language between those two tend to differ at times. You
yeah,
also have to like be a liaison. So like art director, I think is totally in the realms of feeling like, yeah, sure, I can do this. Like you're a personable person. I get that. And part of what I believe an art director is like being able to
Mhm,
articulate ideas,
mhm,
sell them, be able to get everyone that's not on the creative team to
mhm,
come along for this ride. So
mhm,
I think that's good on you. From a technical aspect, let's just break down your homepage really quickly.
mhm.
What are you using to build this?
Squarespace.
Squarespace. Okay.
I almost
Um,
dived into Webflow for this round and I decided not to, but
I would not do this in Webflow. I don't recommend speed is somewhat the name of the game
yeah.
with portfolios and being able to like get like you want to make the most progress possible, and rebuilding your entire website, your portfolio website in Webflow is a waste in my opinion. Like I don't do it. What I would recommend later on
Mhm.
is Framer potentially, but let's not worry. That's not a place that we want to get into of like what you should use and build and tear down your
Yeah,
website.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
From a
yeah.
technical aspect though, I will say this: these should just all be one big link. Like I should just be able to click that. Um, the other thing that I think is you are leading with 3 projects, which is totally fine. Again, speed is the name of the game here. And at the end of the day, like when you get into interviews, depending on how long, you're really only going to be able to talk about 2 to 3 projects anyway. So that's fine.
Mhm,
Like making sure these are the highlighted ones. What I would say is like there needs to be a more emphasis and differentiation between these and these. Um, Potentially even like moving these off into another silo of a page or something. Because like again, at the end of the day, like if you're applying for art director, designer positions, like I want to see the work that's going to tell me that. And then you want to be able to like sprinkle like in a, all these other things of like, yeah, I've done photography before. I've worked with photographers. I've worked on web design. Like
right.
I haven't clicked on any of these, so like I'll come back to that in a little bit. The other thing I think you should do, just generally, and just from speaking with you for 5 minutes already, like I think you need more personality on this website. Like
Mhm,
this is very like kind of cookie cutter, very like, yeah, it's built using a thing that like I selected a font and like it works. But I think like you're the person that needs to have a little bit more personality behind and intentionality behind these things. And like that's just like again before we click into any work and look at that stuff.
mhm,
The other thing I would do is in terms of layout is since you're leading with like these 3 projects, you need to make them feel big, like you're saying, like I've decided to basically encapsulate everything that I've done under the client, which is
mhm.
good. I think that's a great approach, but like it doesn't really give a lot of like weight to your website, like I'm done, like boom, I scrolled, I looked, I saw pictures, great. And I think you can put something together. I would push you to put something together, whether you like it may be difficult on WordPress. It may not be a platform that you totally know or something like that. But like, however you configure that, what makes sense for you, like I would push you to do that. So
Mhm.
let's look at this. So this is the place that you're working at now.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Today, personally, is more critical than ever to address unique. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. This is confusing, right? Like having the clients up here, because like immediately what people are going to do is recognize this as like, oh, are these people that you've worked with? And sure, like I get that part, but in the scope of this project of this client, like these are customers of yours, right? So I think this is actually working against you, where you're like trying to show like, yeah, these are all the clients that we've had at this company. I think you need to jump into the work first before you can get to that point and make it really connect with people that this is the product that I've built and these are the clients that are using it. And at the top here, I'm not sure, unless again, like there's probably a way you can make it work of like, here are all the clients or customers that we've worked with. And I think you would need to provide detail of like, yeah, like I've worked with the sales team and marketing team to onboard Evive as a product for all these companies, like you need some articulation there. Um, Email design. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so all we have is email design here. What else have you done for this company, for while at this company?
Yeah, I've contemplated putting more information, and that was kind of my biggest thing of what I was curious if I would garner from this call was like just the need to add more. I have a little bit of like a postcard design that actually probably should be labeled as print design there. And then like we've done some work specifically like for Home Depot that's been print related. And theirs look and feel looks a little different. So I've been contemplating putting that on there as well. But like it really is exclusively like a lot of email design and like a sprinkle of print.
Okay, so the thing that immediately pops in my head is that like you need to explain that. So to solve common challenges like love benefit, the platform I provide both outside and person. I think there needs to be a little bit more like description and a little bit more content about like how, like where you sit and where this product like actually comes into play for other, like immediately I'm thinking like, okay, this is a health offer to HR. Great. But like, it doesn't tell me your involvement of like how to get this product into the hands of other people. And I'm missing that. And that is like that's like a big gap of like, okay, like I'm a designer who works for this company. The company is constantly is like breaking into new markets. They're looking for new clients or customers to work with. And I'm the designer that has been able to not only help the sales and marketing team, but I also onboard the customers to using this so that their employees know how to use this, like something along those lines that gives me a little bit more background, because immediately it's like initial reaction is like, okay, cool. Here's a health app. Did you make the health app? What did you make from the health app? What part, what are all these things? And if your involvement is more than that, I need to see that. So I think that's like a big gap missing, because then I think it opens up the opportunity to go more and just to like, unfortunately, again, like I see a big email design headline and I'm like, okay, so he only did email design, right? Like that's a drop in the bucket probably from what you've done. And again, I'd push you to like really think about like, where are all the things that you come in, like where are all the times and projects that you've worked on? Because if you're moving on to a more experienced role as an art director or another, level of designer, like that is what's going to get you to those levels, right? Like being able to like make all these things nice and look good is great, but like being able to show that you are more than just a designer, more than just a pair of hands is really important. I think it also gives the opportunity to really be a little bit more, I don't know the word, but like it gives you the opportunity to, instead of just putting these in like categories of like, here's email design, here's postcard design, like it's marketing, right? Like all of that is marketing. And at the end of the day, like I actually think it's like, now again, and this goes without, this is like email design. I know it's a very important piece. It is important to marketing, it's important to a lot of companies. That's how they stay in line with their customers. But the bigger picture, like that is like compared to that bigger picture, that's very small. It's a small drop. And so it gives you that opportunity to be a little bit more broad with your, like what you've actually done. Like you can focus on your responsibilities. You can focus on the teams that you worked with, all the stakeholders that you've worked with, and then go into like, part of my responsibility was developing email communication for our, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 clients that I've worked with. In addition to that, whenever we onboarded a new client, I would then also work with the team to create materials that would then circulate within their company. So not only did I have to know our brand, I had to know their brand and what would make sense. So like all of that is really important, where again, right now you're kind of just like really minimizing all of that work. You're really minimizing like, hey, yeah, I've been at this company for X amount of years. I've been like one of the only designers on the team doing a lot of shit. And all I did was email design, like,
Yeah.
I know you've done a lot more stuff than that.
Yeah.
I'd also like, again, when you're thinking about like the bigger picture, like something like this is really great, but you focus so much here on email design that like, it makes me think like all you do is design emails, right? And that is a very like easy skill to hire for, and a very specific thing that I would go for someone to go do that. but like you're looking for a role that's more.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to push you to kind of think about and seek out is like, what are the numbers behind all of these emails, right? Like how many people is Evive emailing? How many people are the clients emailing? Like, what is the reach of this? Because again, that is also going to really put into perspective of like, okay, cool. I'm handling an audience of, X amount, 100,000, 40,000, whatever it may be. And then that kind of shows the responsibility, the level of detail and commitment that you have for being tasked with this responsibility. And then again, also like try to pull out everything and anything else that you can, whether it's like you worked on a landing page, you worked on social stuff, whatever it may be. If you're going to bucket, your work under clients, like I need to see the variety and the spectrum for sure.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And again, everything I just said, like that needs to be written and on the page too, because like something I'm seeing so often is that like, okay, we have a description, great. And then I'm just like scrolling through images, and that works for some.
Yeah.
But most of us are not at that level of like, I can articulate everything in enough space at the top of this page here for it to make sense. And I've done my task, and the quality of work will speak for itself, right? Like we're not at that level, and we don't have those clients to be like, yeah, here's Netflix.
Right.
This is what we did, like that's just not the case.
Yeah.
Let's look at another project. Which one? Definition Theater or this?
You could do the Jewish United Fund.
Okay. Services, graphic design, social media, blah, blah, blah. Fund has provided vital points of discovery, learning, community assistance across the net. Campaign helps build deeper. Jewish Chicago, their monthly print publication is the largest circulation of any. Okay. Good start. All right. I got that you're working on a publication here. But again, what I'm going to guess happens is like okay, there's a little bit more here. Cool. This is a great example of like other stuff that you're doing, right? Like everything that is encompassed under the Jewish United Fund is here. Great. I need to have those points to hold on to or to get to where you're telling me about it, right? So email design, again, I wouldn't lead with this. What is like if we were to itemize this on a receipt, right? What is the bigger chunk of that receipt going to be, right? Is it going to be social? Is it going to be branding? Is it going to be like layout design? Like, and I also don't think, I think something that I tend to get away from as well is like, instead of saying like layout design or email design, like, again, what is that bigger piece? It's like email marketing communication, editorial, print magazine distribution, whatever. Like we need to evolve out of this. Like, yes, I do layout design. Yes, I do email design, branding. And you don't have to write any of this down. You'll have a link to this, afterwards, and I'll send notes. But, like that is like really kind of gonna connect more with that person who's looking at it. Like branding and identity, great. What was the, like, instead of it being labeled as branding and identity, like what is the like reason behind this that we could use as a headline? Like connecting with the large Jewish teenage community within Chicago, right? Like that starts to be like, oh, cool. Like I want to learn more about that. And so I developed the brand and identity for the JUS teens, organization, whatever, the other thing I would think about doing, yeah, exactly. And then it gives you, again, it just opens up a door for you to be like, yeah, they wanted to get into a younger demographic. I came up with this typography based on their previous stuff, whatever. Like it gives you more room to talk more about yourself, which I love doing. And like, that's all this is, right? Like we just love talking about ourselves and being able to show the work. Do that for yourself, The other thing I would think about doing, and again, I don't want to put this as a priority because I just got off of another portfolio review, and like my I want people to take away, like, do the things that, like, prioritize the things that are going to like make progress first before you like dig in hours and days of like
Sure.
searching out new mocks and like putting all these things in like different, different like images and stuff like that. But I would think about like not using mocks like these already kind of come off as like a bit too like fake 3D, and same thing with these, like, so like, can you find, better mocks potentially? If not, like, can you just like break these down, like break down the assets in a way that like isn't in this like kind of grid of like, here's just a bunch of things with drop shadows on them, right? Like there's nothing wrong with, like, for example, the one thing I've always said, yes, like you did a magazine layout and then you put it in a magazine to show that it's mocked up. It's nice to have like one or two of those, but like if you have a layout that you specifically really enjoyed working on, like what stops you from making a 1920 by 1080 slide and just having that be the image, right? Like here's the layout. Like people will get that it is like, it'll connect that it is a magazine, that it was like editorial, but it gives you the opportunity to really show off like the bigger pieces, like this bright pink typography, the imagery, the layout, the columns of the copy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like seeing, these like kind of old magazine mocks for so much can kind of bore you and like, you just sort of like turn your mind off. Same thing. And again, like same thing with all these other like social deliverables, right? Like, yes, you worked on social media for them, but like, why did they need social media? Well, they wanted to, again, connect with like a broader audience, right? Like they wanted to expand on other platforms and things like that. So I think like that's really important to think about when you're going in these projects, you're going through and like developing, and again, organize them in a way that's like, what is the biggest chunk, or like, what was the most, I don't want to say payoff because it means that you measure, like there's a measurement involved there, but like what in regards to a graphic designer or a branding studio or an agency, like what is the big chunk of work that they want to see the most of, or that they want to do the most of? And that's usually like branding, marketing, like those bigger pieces of work. That's kind of how I think of how I would sort of lead these things. Granted, if it doesn't make sense to open up the Jewish United Fund and then see like a new brand for teens, like that's kind of a question on you. I don't know. Like if you think that's an easy, first step, then sure. But I think that's kind of like always really important. And maybe again, that like there's a number of ways that you can make that work. Like maybe it's figuring out like, how do I introduce this project better so that I can then go into this big meaty piece of a logo brand that I did for them and then show them the rest of the work, like that's kind of like how I would approach this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's look at this really quickly. Celebrate stories created with, inspired by, blah, 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 blah. Okay, branding strategy. Okay, cool. Immediately, I don't love this layout because I actually think like for a branding project, you should break out before I see any of this stuff really, like, and again, maybe like there's a number of different solutions, but maybe the big image that I see at first, like maybe this is the big image that I see at first. And let's just say, if I go through here, so, okay, we're in here somewhere. Padding top. Where's my height? So let's just say like this is bigger. And maybe that shadow is not so much. I don't know. And maybe this like label is down the bottom left, so I could see the image. Maybe that's like the big thing that I'm taking away at first, right? Like that's like the big grand presentation. Then I get into the copy. Then I would want to see a breakdown of how you got to this brand, right? Kind of like what you're doing here. But again, like I would have this on the page because this is really small. And then what I tend to focus on is all this other stuff, which is kind of hard to see. So like I would break into like the, this was their old logo and this is how we came up to, this is like what we talked about, what they wanted to do. And then this is where we sort of ended. And then these are the assets developed out of that discussion. And then these are all the applications that we went into, right? So you then can go into your advertisements, you can go into your, I would like, yeah, a coaster is great, but like, again, what are the big meaty pieces that I want to sink my teeth into? Web and social. So I'm guessing these are like, yeah, like your announcement kind of posters and stuff like that. Great. But again, like you have like, this is website design, right? Like where, like this is the big meaty piece, this is the big meaty piece. I'm sure you did a lot of this stuff and that's like, you have a lot more of that to show. But, like to me, social is, and again, I'm not discrediting social work, like doing developing work for social media. But if I look at it and think of it from a business perspective, that is like sort of lower on the list of like what's going to cost things, blah, blah, blah. And I would think website is going to be next on that after the branding and the strategy is done. So whether that means you have to like work on creating a few different mocks and getting those a little bit more presentable because, or, just like switching the order, that's kind of up to you. But I think, in my mind, like, I want to see more of this stuff. These are the big pieces. And then tell me that you also expanded into print and web,
Right.
Let's go back here. I want to see how you've organized all this other stuff. So portraits, lifestyle, cool, great. Personal work. Okay. I think, yeah, I mean, like this stuff is sick already. I'm like, this is cool type. This is cool. Like these are dope graphics and textures. Like where's this personality in the website, And I would actually push you to like try to figure out how to sprinkle this stuff on that page because like this gets me more excited than like the corporate work that you've done, right? Like this is your personality.
That feels like my biggest hurdle that I've just been trying to crack for so long is who I am in my, like, when I have no one else telling me what to do, translating that into like, a more corporate role.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get it. We all have to kind of like put on our little, button-down shirt and go into corporate America and, make cooler conversation. I did it for 10 years. Like I left it for a reason. But when you're creative, like that doesn't have to stop you from, being pointed with your opinions and showing your work and showing your style. And like, this is an exact example of like what you may actually be versus like what you have to do to survive. And I think this is going to way more get attention and catch people's eyes than like, like I can tone it down and work with a brand that's in, the health industry and works with clients like Home Depot. But in my free time, like this is what I like to work on. And so like, I would even question, let's just look at it this way, right? Like, what if your website was this from the beginning? Like I could just keep scrolling and look at all this stuff. And then at the bottom, you have your 3 projects, like very distinctly presented in a different way from all of this stuff you've made that goes into your experience, that goes into all that stuff. Because again, like this is the stuff that people want to see, especially from a creative standpoint of like, what is your opinion on design? Where do you sit? Like, what do you like to work on? And what do you like to create? And because we all know that like at the end of the day, like we're all creating shit to get paid, to pay our rent, to not have to like, that we can afford to live. So, like that doesn't always mean that you get to make whatever you want.
Right.
But like, how can we kind of give an eye or give a window to that? And so like, I would push to like have this on the front page above your work, kind of like sitting between your little introduction, which again, I think you could do better than this. Tiny designer with a giant impact. Sure, that's simple, but I'd push it.
Okay.
And yeah, explore web design. Okay, great. Like, why are these separate from is it because like you have said to yourself you have more to show in those clients than you do these websites necessarily?
Yeah,
What did you do with this? Like what was your
I created the whole thing.
okay, so I would say like that's a pretty big undertaking.
Yeah.
And I would argue that like and like okay, web does like first of all, putting it just as like a mixing it in with like this idea of okay, here's my photography. Granted, I see this a lot, like designers who are like, yeah, I could take photos. Great. We all now can take photos.
Right.
Let's get over the like the fact that we need to like express it somehow on our portfolio website and just know that you're good with a camera because
Mhm.
one day someone will be like, oh my God, we have such a low budget.
Mhm.
And you'll be given the opportunity to step in if you really want to, right?
Mhm.
Um, but something like web design is a big undertaking
Mhm.
where that is like super applicable and immediately recognized as a graphic designer's like responsibility.
Mhm.
And I would push to have at least like one of these, whatever you think is the best or most
Yeah.
creative. I know you have this under definition theater,
Right.
so maybe that's not worth it.
Yeah.
But like this
I think
needs,
I've contemplated it because it's like all made in Squarespace, and in my mind, that's like not translatable to a large company.
I mean, working, but like, okay, sure, I get that, right? Like, but at the end of the day, like, did you just work with Squarespace or did you figure out how to distill down this record realty company into a website that makes them look good and looks good for them, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
Right? Like that there's the big picture. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I work with Squarespace, but like Naomi had no clue what she was doing and I made the logo
Yeah.
and whatever else. You
Yeah.
know, like again, there's a case study there, you know, like that's a
Right.
big thing.
Right.
And I actually think these are more interesting already than some of the other work.
Mhm.
Um, maybe I would go with like whatever you think is meatier. Think about it. Like if you made the
Mhm.
logo, like if you have one that you made the logo, you did the
Mhm.
typography, all that stuff,
Mhm.
go with that.
Mhm.
Um, let's see what else. Art activism. Okay, cool. And also like think of a way to make these moments like this of like, hey, I'm a graphic designer. I like love supporting my community through the stuff I
Mhm.
can make. I want to show you that. But like putting it into this little bucket of like art activism again is like void of personality and like opinion, you know, like
Mhm.
people usually say like, okay, cool. If you want to do stuff like this, right, where you're just like, hey, there's a thing I made, like, and I want to like throw it up on my website somehow, you could bucket it under a thing like a blog or something like that, or like,
Mhm.
you know, quote unquote playground or whatever.
Mhm.
Like that's where like maybe photography and art activism would fall under. And then maybe that's also where like, you know, this like wall, like one, I don't like this one, so I'd get rid of that. And this one kind of throws off the rest of the vibe for this, like all this
Mhm.
lovely typography and stuff.
Mhm.
You've like this already to me is like a collage that you is worth putting on your homepage somewhere. But let's just say like, um, you know, you want to have an ongoing place to show this work, like one-offs, like every once a week or whatever. Like that's where that idea of like this blog comes into, which I think is nice. And it can be called anything, right? It can be called your notebook, it can be called your playground, it can be called whatever. Like that's again where your personality starts to show through,
Mhm.
you know, like Ideal Lab, I don't know, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But it's also like showing that you are consistently making stuff. You're thinking about design, you're thinking about like, oh, you know, what I want to like mess around with. And
Mhm.
it gives you an opportunity where it feels more of like a nice destination to show off this stuff rather than having these weird moments of like, I feel like I have to categorize it under a label or under an industry and show that, you know, like, you know, if you had this like playground, we'll just go with the word playground for a bit. Then you have the opportunity of just saying like, here's a bunch of photos that I took of this person this weekend.
Mhm.
And I think they're great.
Mhm.
Boom. You know, like you don't have to like formalize it any more than that, you know?
Mhm.
Another technical thing, uh, resume, I would think get it on the page, you know, or I don't know if this is just because I'm in the way my browser is right now, but like either get it on the page or put it on your about maybe, or have it open in a new window. It
Okay.
might open in a new window, but I'm just like my browser may not do that. So
Sure.
just a thing to think about. And then like, you know, just all around, I think you have so much more personality here that you can add than your portfolio is doing for you.
Mhm.
And I'm working on something to hopefully make, make it a little easier in when it comes to getting into a new platform. Because again,
Mm.
like I'm seeing across the board, like people are using WordPress, are using Squarespace.
Mhm.
It's still not connecting. Like, yeah, they're great for website builders, but like it's not connecting where a designer or creative can come in and like add their personality in a way that makes sense or
Yeah.
is really easy for them. So I'm hoping I'm working on something like that and to be able to share it in like a month or so. But
Yeah. I feel like that is honestly what was like really driving my contemplation of like switching to Webflow, was just not to tear it all down, but just like because it would give me more options and like less limitations, because I feel like that's what I like, even though I have like obviously like code to like make things more customized and like make them do a little bit more of what I want. Like sometimes I like, yeah, have the like, this is InDesign and like I'm like, I want the Illustrator where I can just like do whatever I want.
sure, yeah. I would not, again, like I love Webflow. I don't recommend it for this purpose of
Yeah.
like building a portfolio website. It's great if you know it and you feel super confident that you can rip through it. But if you
Right.
don't have any experience before that, then it's
It's
a big time suck. And
totally.
while you'll learn a lot along the way, it's going
Yeah.
to just put you in a hole. So
Yeah. I think that's for next chapter. So
yeah, I'll keep you posted on when I come out with the
great.
new thing I'm talking about. But are there any other questions or anything like that you want to kind of like go over before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I really just was doing my best to digest the information and take it all in. I think you've unfortunately said some things that I already knew in my head, but was too
Sure.
scared to admit.
Just need some affirmation.
A little bit of that, which like,
Confirmation.
yeah, I like when I scheduled the call, I was like really tempted to just like change everything and make it better and add all the things. And I was like, no, I should just take what it is right now, and because that's what future potential employers have been seeing anyway. So
Yeah.
rip it to threads and we'll go from there. So I really do appreciate it. I
Totally.
think I'm really gonna simmer more on like that idea of like less bucketing and more of like what is actually at the core of that, of like why are we making those choices, how did we decide social is like the medium in which we're like achieving that, like what is the actual goal there, and fleshing that out a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's super important because again, you want to avoid the situation where someone comes to you and they're like, oh, hey, I saw you had a lot of email design in your portfolio. Can you like whip together email design for me and do it for like a not great price? Like that's what happens when you start to do this, when you start to like bucket in that way or like label your work that way. Like again, at the end of the day, like yes, the work takes form in designing nice emails. Yeah, my Amazon's here. Sorry. But all then people kind of look at you as is like an email designer that they can just throw money at you, and get it done really quickly, which doesn't seem like that's the intention. And you want to show to them that like there's thought and process and business initiatives behind it.
Totally. No, it definitely makes sense. So, yeah, no, I really appreciate your time. It's been so great. And do know that like I know this has been a new project in your realm and it's amazing, and you're really doing the good work by putting the time to help folks. So
Awesome.
Certainly
Well, thank you for that, Ari. And if you have any questions, you have my email. Feel free to like send me updates as you like work on it.
Perfect.
You'll get you'll get an email after this, probably like in 5 minutes or so, that they'll just have like 2 or 3 questions. If you can fill those out, that'll let me know where to send the recording and all the other stuff from this review. Okay.
Perfect. Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Ari. Nice to meet you and have a good day. Okay.
Nice to meet you, John. Have a good one.